कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी करती हैं मुलाकातें, कभी यादों में बरसातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें। मन की गहरी झील में कूद जाती हैं कभी, सोच के दरिया के संग संग बहती जाती हैं कभी। चाहे शाम हो या हो रातें, किताबें करती हैं बातें।
किताबनामा में आपका स्वागत है। वेलकम टू किताबनामा, a program for book lovers, book readers and book writers. I have with me today two outstanding translators. Gillian Wright, who's on my left, is a translator who has done extraordinary work in bringing Hindi into to English readers. And on my right is Arunava Sinha, who has translated from Bengali some of the most difficult texts and done so with great verve and brilliance. I'd like to ask Gillian what brought her into translation and what were her early experiences with translation?
Well, my first experience was with translation at university, where I studied Urdu.
Oh.
So there's one thing I had to do as an exam, and I thought when I left college, I thought there's absolutely no way I'm going to go back into doing any translation. And then I happened to go into a bookshop. I went to the Sri Ram bookshop and I picked up a copy of Srilal Shukla's Rag Darbari. And I took it up to Chail and I read it in Chail when I was on holiday, and I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. And I thought, this is ridiculous, you know, this should be in English. Why isn't this in English? And then I discovered it had actually been translated in practically every other Indian language already, but it hadn't been translated into English. So that was my opportunity. And I took it to a publisher and they agreed to publish it. And so for me it started off really as a great labour because I was rather out of practice, but I have the enormous support of the author, who regarded me with some amusement and was always very, very helpful. And so gradually, just because of conviction, I got into this. Basically, that's how it happened with me.
Arunava, you went into translation with Chauringi. I think that was the first big book that you translated. And since Gillian says that her translation of Srilal Shukla's Rag Darbari was done with a lot of support from him, what was your relationship with Shankar?
Well, it was he who actually commissioned the translation back in 1992, when there was no major tradition of publishing translations from the Indian languages into English. There used to be some publishing in the 70s and 80s, but that had died down by then. And Penguin was virtually the only publisher. So he asked me to do it, and he said, I'm sure you can finish it in about 2 months' time. So I was young then compared to my age now, so I had the audacity to say, of course, 6 weeks. Why are we even talking about 2 months? And that's all I did for 6 weeks, literally. I mean, I had a job, but I used to tell them I'm not going to work beyond 3 hours. And Shankar was very supportive in the sense of checking with me what kind of progress I was making. And he was very excited to get the finished manuscript. And that was the end of that for 14 years.
You know, I remember seeing a television program with Shankar, where somebody asked him what he felt about Satyajit Ray's filming of the middleman, John Aranya.
Yes.
And he got out of it very neatly. He said, you know, when you give your daughter in marriage to somebody, she changes her gotra. So the gotra is changed when that happens. And also, no matter how much you may dislike your son-in-law privately, in public you will never say so. And that's always stuck with me, because I have never dared to translate a living author so far, which is why I have immense admiration for the two of you who've done it.
Well, actually, I regret that I like my authors as alive as possible, because the second author that I worked with Rahim Asum Raza, was alive up to the point we signed the contract, and then unfortunately he passed away. And a lot of the language in that particular book, which is set in rural eastern UP, is Urdu Bhojpuri, and a lot of the language, particular words and things like that, are particular to his area of Ghazipur and his village. You know, you have a particular word for the place where you hang a staff in the eaves and things like this. And I hadn't the first idea. These words weren't in the dictionary. And so I had to go back to his sisters and his family in order to find out what they meant. So I think it's very useful to have an author. And especially because if you're going to a very established author, they're very often incredibly sympathetic and mature and wonderful human beings. And they don't have, none of the authors I worked with, neither Srilal Shukla, nor Rahima Sumraza, nor Bisham Sani, had any sort of horrible ego about their writing, you know. They were not, they were very, very easygoing and very helpful and very sympathetic and very kind. And I think that the experience of actually knowing these people is one of the joys of translation for me.
Now, Gillian's is an experience which is unique because she's not a native Hindi speaker or an Urdu speaker. You've learnt it from the book, just as we've learnt English. So in our cases, whether we do it from Hindi into English, which is an adopted language, and you do it from Hindi and Urdu, which is your adopted language, which are your adopted languages, into English, the barriers are the same. In your case, how is it with Bengali? Which is the language which you feel closer to and which you feel more confident of handling?
Well, you know, I went to a missionary school and we were taught in English and we were discouraged from speaking in Bangla at all. And it was quite the fashion of the times not to use too much of your mother tongue. But as I grew older, I think, you know, you start going back to your roots. And I discovered that really our lives are lived in our mother tongues. No matter how much we may be using the other borrowed language, the fact is that when it comes to the innermost feelings, that's the language. So, you know, in my head, when I abuse people, I do it in Bengali.
Hindi is not a bland language. While you're speaking Hindi, there's also Avdhi, there's also Purabiya, there is all kinds, Bhojpuri, there are all kinds of mixtures of dialects and voices. How did you handle that? Because you've done it very well.
Well, I approach the Ragda Bari, or Adha Gaon, from a very selfish perspective, which is basically that my way of understanding India, of understanding the parts of India and the sort of people in India that really interest me and that I love, is through these books. So it's precisely the discovery of precisely these things which to me is the joy. And then you just internalize this as much as possible and take whatever you can of that spirit and try and bend some of it as much as you can into the English language. It's, as you say, is very, very bland. But you can, at least you can do all sorts of ways you can try and do that. And Ragda Bari was my first attempt, you see. And then in Adha Gaon there was something even more difficult in a way, because everything became very epic and you were dealing with tragedy and all sorts of things. But for example, even if you have a colourful figure of speech or something, you can at least be quite literal with that. And I think literality helps to a certain extent with this. Like there's in Ragda Bari at one point, one character says, you know, somebody is doing something which is going to harm him and he thinks it's actually going to do him some good. So he said it's like someone with a man with a tree growing out of his groin who thinks he can enjoy the shade. You know, all these. So you can get some of that colour in through just translating things literally, really.
What about Bengali? Because what happens is when you're trying to be very literal, as Gillian says, there is a danger that you can become very maudlin and mawkish, because a lot of our languages, they naturally go the way of the lyric, particularly Bengali, which is very musical and repetitive.
Tagore himself set the ball rolling, it's never stopped since then. And you know, when you literally translate Tagore into English, you'll get phrases, you know, the sky of my soul and the heart of my, it's horrible really. And most of all, it misses the lightness of touch that the original has. So you severely have to pare down and just retain a sense of the original image, but cut out the adjectives, use far fewer words. But you know, the other big problem, and I guess this is true of all languages, is that Bangla, for example, the way a word is used, especially in dialogue, is a shortcut for that character's identity, location, time in history. So there's East Bengal and West Bengal, for example. A person from East Bengal will use the same word differently. in simple verb ending. For example, I went, gelam. In West Bengal, it will be gelam. It will be gelum in the traditional way. In East Bengal, it will have been gelam. So Bengali writers use that very efficiently to bring out the differences without telling you in as many words that this person's from X and this person's from Y. So that's one. The second thing is when there are class differences which are brought out very adequately through dialogue. Typically, a lot of Bengali literature is set in urban middle class homes, and there's a lot of dialogue between the domestic help and the homemaker and the master. So the language is very different, and again, you don't have to explain. Just the way the words are used tells you everything. When you take that into English, the registers are flattened. Nor can you create some kind of imaginary dialect to try and bring out the difference. That would be really awkward. So you're left with a situation where suddenly some people actually sound far sharper or far more fluent than they are meant to be. It's a tough problem, and you have to choose your vocabulary then to get around. Use different words.
When you're adapting a novel for, let's say, a film script or a television script, you have to spell out everything. You can't say he looks pensive, or or it will come in the. It has to come in that. You can't have any internal dialogue. It must be clearly evident to the person that there is, if somebody is feeling agitated, it can't be a kind of silent thing. There has to be some way of highlighting that. And I find that helps, if you try and picture that scene in your head and say, this is the mood that this particular segment has.
Oh, I think yes, because it's on the mood that you decide the register, the pitch, the vocabulary. So you have to internalize it. It is like you're enacting the drama.
Yes, and so you put in a lot of adjectives to describe the voice as it probably sounds, whether it is consternation or anger or surprise or whatever. It helps sometimes to put in those.
You're right. Because in Indian languages, mostly, for example, it's always he said, she said, he said, she said.
Yeah, massively, but endlessly.
In English, you can't keep using the word
you
said.
Can't. No, you can't.
So the moment you start using exclaimed, observed, remarked, quipped, so you're actually explaining the tone.
Or
the
then, do something even more sly, which is change direct speech into indirect speech.
Oh no, I've never done that.
I've done that, and I find
I've never done that.
I have, and I have to tell you, it actually does work sometimes, because in Tata Professor, for instance, which I translated, Manohar Shyam Joshi's Hindi is a Kumauni Hindi of the village. And it is something that I've heard all my life as a child, because we grew up in Kumaon. And I know exactly the kind of voice and pitch, but it just doesn't come across when I do it. He said, she said, they said. And so I've dispensed with the, with the inverted commas and just changed it in such a way. I mean, of course, I've been completely, I've kept the fidelity of the text there, but I've just changed it from a direct into a kind of indirect speech, or something that lies in between, and it worked. I think it did.
No, I know
and you don't have the text in front of you.
Certainly, in the course of reading the book, I didn't have any sense of
absolutely
it not having been written that way at all. So obviously, it did work. But dialogue is still the biggest challenge. Isn't
Has anyone tried poetry?
Urdu poetry. I think, for example, you have to be quite mad to try. You have to be quite mad to try and do that, because it's the Gulf prose is still prose. It's manageable. You can do something with it. But when you're faced with couplets, then what can you do? And all they are is just a vague sort of indication of what the whole thing's about. It's very, very difficult because it's so condensed.
And you're inevitably interpreting and therefore losing the richness.
Well, you lose you have one level of meaning perhaps, and then you lose the 30, 40 other levels of meaning, and it doesn't sound very good.
I had my eyes open to that, when I was working on a book named Kitaabnama, which had couplets from Ghalib. And then I went to someone who knows about it and who looked at me exactly in the same way. Which lunatic asylum did you get out of? Yes. So, and then he said, you can't do it because, this word means, five different things. And depending on what combination you use, because you see, it's word one can be meaning one and word two can be meaning four. So they add up to a fifth meaning.
Yeah.
What about puns, excuse me? I mean, that's another big stumbling block. Puns,
oh, yes.
You have to reinvent them, like Anthea Bell does with Asterix. You have to do them from scratch.
because yes, because otherwise not to, you know, it somewhere leaches the richness of the text if you don't register it in the translation. But at the same time, that is, as my sister says, asli badapan wo hai jo pan ko translate kare, you know, because it is so difficult, and puns are so, you know, it's like an internal joke within the text. The other thing which I wanted to ask all of you about is that, would you go back to doing the classics again? Because some of our classics are beautiful, but they've been mauled because they've been translated so badly.
There are so many things, and so many things which haven't been translated, let alone wrongly translated. I mean, we've just been celebrating Manto's centenary, but I have his collected works, and as far as I can see, there's a lot which hasn't been done. And Manto is very direct. His the way he speaks, the way he writes is very direct, to the point, simple, pared down.
And there's a kind of ageless quality to his prose.
So it's not difficult to do. So I think there's
So I think that is the task that all of us have to look forward to now, going back to the classics and trying to see whether we can bring them back into the future.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So with that happy note, thank you both very much for this very stimulating conversation, and good luck with the projects that you are doing.
Thank you, and to you too.
Almost Single then really went on a journey of its own. It had so little to do with me or what I felt it would do for me. It opened the door to films from there, and I got my first film offer, which was Anjana Anjani, which is a film that came out in 2010, and then that led to the next film, which was Kahani. So in a lot of ways, I'm glad Almost Single made a lot of friends, because it made a lot more people and diverse people, creative people, reach out to me and bring me so many opportunities, which I don't think would have come to me otherwise. And this, you know, the strange thing is that when you write something so many years ago, and especially when I wrote this book, I was in such a different space that I can now read this and almost feel like someone else wrote it, which is I guess a good thing. So here we are. The chapter is called My World. The phone punctures my deep, dreamless REM slumber at the crack of dawn. I flop an arm out of the covers, groping for the instrument. Hello, I croak. Aisha, wake up, sleepyhead. Misha sounds like a bottle of the best bubbly ready to pop, and my head feels like it's going to explode. Just what happened last night? What time is it? 11:15, and it's a gorgeous day. Do you want to get a coffee at Barista? We can sit outside. I hang up. Of course it rings again. Damn, some women just don't get it. Yes, Mish, I grind out. No coffee for me. It stains the teeth. Come on, you smoke like a pack a day. Don't give me that. I refuse to dignify this with a response, but knowing there is no point in arguing, I agree to meet her at 11:30, which gives me 45 minutes more of shut-eye. I lie back in bed, bracing myself for the wave of nausea that I can feel making its way up my throat. It is broken by a flurry of recollection. Last night was a girls' night out. Let me rephrase that. Most nights are girls' night out. The only difference is that last night we stayed in. Misha had invested in a bottle of Plonk with some French-sounding label. In consideration of the money spent, we finished the bottle, for which I was paying the full price now. For most people, life and love are like a game of connect the dots. The numbers always form a straight line to the goal. The result is a perfect picture. For the lesser half, especially for those who inhabit my world, the vision is a blur of blots and splotches, and there's no straight line to speak of. This is my story, and of those who occupy this world with me. My name is Aisha Bhatia. I'm 29 years old and single. But before I get into all that, I have a confession to make. I'm rather large. I live in denial, of course. I will never tell you how much I weigh. Let's just say that the package isn't too bad, as my height sort of makes up for my generous proportions. And this is where it comes. Is this autobiographical? No, it's not. And I'm going to leave this at that.
बिना रूपासक्ति के कोई कवि नहीं होता, और बिना मृत्यु की आंखों में आंखें डाले कोई बड़ा कवि नहीं होता। कबीर जिस तरह प्रेम और विरह में डूबते हैं, वैसे ही मृत्यु में भी। देह की नश्वरता की भी बात करते हैं और देह में सभी तीर्थों के निवास की भी। जानते हैं कि प्रेम के रोमांच में, विरह की वेदना में देह बजती है रबाब की तरह। देह के एकम एक हुए बिना नेह अधूरा ही है। राम से मिलन की सार्थकता तन मन के एक होने में ही है। तन रत कर मन रत करे हो, नश्वरता के बखान के लिए हो या आत्म साधन के माध्यम के रूप में, देह कबीर की कविता में बहुत सघन रूप से उपस्थित है। देह उपस्थित है तो मृत्यु को तो होना ही है। देह की गहरी अनुभूति मृत्यु का भय भी उत्पन्न करती है, उस पर विचार का अवसर भी। देह और काल की सतत उपस्थिति के बिना कबीर की कविता की कल्पना नहीं की जा सकती। सभी कवियों का हो या ना हो, मृत्यु सभी उपदेशकों का प्रिय विषय अवश्य है। शायद इसीलिए मृत्यु की बात बार बार करते कबीर लोगों को उपदेशक से लगते हैं। लेकिन फर्क शैली और सामग्री का है। कबीर की कविता में मृत्यु केवल अंत नहीं आरंभ भी है, केवल भय नहीं आनंद भी है। चेतावनी तो वो है ही, लेकिन कुछ अलग ढंग से। कई कवियों ने नक्शिक वर्णन किया है। कविता के एक ढंग में तो वो स्थापित काव्य रूढ़ ही बल्कि कवित्व की पहचान है। कबीर की कविता में नक्शिक एकदम अनपेक्षित रूप में निर्मम आत्म साक्षात्कार के क्षण में प्रकट होता है। उस क्षण कबीर एक दृश्य देखते हैं और आपको दिखाते हैं। देखो यह तन जरता है, घड़ी पहर बिलमोरे भाई जरता है। काहे कू एता किया पसारा, ये तन जरे जरे है छुआरा। काम क्रोध घट घरे बिकारा, आपय आप जरे संसारा। कहे कबीर हम मृतक समाना, राम नाम छूटे अभिमाना। इस तन को जलना है, मरघट में भी उसके पहले भी। अन्यत्र हम न मरें, मरे संसारा कहने वाले कबीर यहाँ मृतक समाना कह रहे हैं। दोनों ही बातें सत्य हैं, कविता का सत्य। कबीर जैसे लोग जो इन दोनों सत्यों के भोक्ता भी हैं और दृष्टा भी, उस हंसी को सुने बिना रह नहीं सकते जो सारे अस्तित्व में गूंजती है, काल की हंसी। कच्ची काया और अस्थिर चित्त लिए हम स्थिरता का प्रयत्न करते हैं, निधड़क हो जाना चाहते हैं और हमारे प्रयत्न पर काल हंसता है। कबीर काची काया मन अथिर, थिर थिर काम करंत। ज्यों ज्यों नर निधड़क फिरे, त्यों त्यों काल हसंत। मनुष्य का जीवन उसे एक समय देता है, लेकिन इस समय में जो अंतर्निहित परवशता है, अनिश्चितता है, सिर्फ और सिर्फ मौत की निश्चितता है, उसी के बोध का परिणाम है भारतीय भाषाओं में मृत्यु और समय दोनों का वाचक शब्द काल। काल मृत्यु के नामों में से एक नाम भर नहीं, सर्वाधिक व्यंजक नाम है। समय में होना, जीवन में होना, काल में होना है, मृत्यु में होना है। जीवन का आरंभ ही समय का आरंभ है, काल का आरंभ है। काल चक्र से गुजरना, काल की ओर बढ़ना है। इस विचित्र दशा से मुक्ति भी दे तो शायद काल ही दे। जीवन में तो मुक्ति असंभव है। कैदे हयात और बंदे गम, असल में दोनों एक हैं। मौत से पहले आदमी गम से नजात पाए क्यों। कौन जाने मौत भी नजात देती है या नहीं। देती ही हो तो भी मनुष्य को तो नजात जीवन में ही चाहिए। साधना की सफलता कहिए या प्रेम की परिणति, कबीर उसे राम का दर्शन कहते हैं और वो उन्हें इस जीवन में ही चाहिए। मुँवा पीछे देहुगे सो दर्शन की ही काम। दर्शन की ये चाह मृत्यु को कबीर के लिए डर की बजाय आनंद में भी बदलती है। कब मरे हों कब देखे हों पूरन परमानंद। डर हो या आनंद, अपरिहार्य है मृत्यु। इस सत्य से मुँह चुराना व्यर्थ है और सिलसिले टूटते रहते हैं। मौत का सिलसिला अमर है। कबीर रोवण हारे भी मुए, मुए चलावन हार। हा हा करते ते मुए, कासन करो पुकार। कबीर जिन हम जाए ते मुए, हम भी चालन हार। जे हमको आगे मिले तिन भी बंध्या भार। गरज के कमर बांधे या चलने को सब यार बैठे हैं। बहुत आगे गए बाकी जो हैं तैयार बैठे।